In a world with only hot takes,
Two college friends try to cool down sports media.
join Jack and Jared every week as they tackle the biggest stories in the NFL.
And give the reasonable football analysis you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to 710 Sports.
Welcome back to episode 45 of 710 Sports with
Jack
and Jared. Thanks for joining us. It's been sort of a crazy trade deadline week. Lots of big moves happening on and off the field. Plenty going on, of course, with the Las Vegas Raiders, which we're going to start with in this episode.
Ooh.
Also, just highlighting the biggest winners, the biggest losers from the trade deadline period, which was, of course, Halloween. And then we're going to discuss maybe the best week of football that we're going to see in the regular season coming up this weekend, starting, of course, in Germany with the Chiefs and the Dolphins. But first, Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'd say really this week's actually starting a game we're not even going to talk about. It's actually starting Thursday when Mayo Mania and Will Levis are going to run wild, and we're gonna get to see if that first game 4 touchdowns was a fluke or not. Sorry, just completely forgot about that until you said starting in Germany, which is true. That's the Sunday morning game, but hey, I just thought that's a little bonus thing to look forward to.
No, you're absolutely right.
Does.
That Thursday game, I think, is going to be sneaky good, especially with
Steelers.
that Levis
storyline.
Steelers.
Yeah. If it didn't have the Levis storyline, that's a terrible game. Tannehill's in that game, not watching it. But the fact it's also, Steelers are a good defense here. They're a team that's above 500, I believe. They're floating around like they're a team who's going to float around in that playoff race against a Titans team now with a rookie quarterback, with everyone who everyone saw on draft night with the all that stuff. It makes that interesting game.
Yeah, and
I look forward to an actually interesting Thursday night game.
But. Yeah, the saga of the Mayo Man may continue. So yes, you're right. I'll start then, but I just think about those perfect Sundays where you wake up and football's already on at 9:30, and then you get to watch for over 12 hours straight, something like closer to 15 hours of football nonstop.
9 to 11:30, something like that.
Yeah, it's my perfect type of weekend, my perfect Sunday. But it's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. I know I've been busy with travel and work. We were coming off of, I guess the week. We were predicting the week where the Ravens blew out the Lions. Which was a very anticipated week. We're a couple of weeks away from that. And the biggest news, obviously, like I said, that we're going to start with is late after the trade deadline, the Raiders, just at 2 a.m. on Halloween night, the kids had already gone back.
They had gotten their
candy. They had eaten it, gotten their stomach aches, and gone to bed. And all of a sudden, Mark Davis, he wanted to still hand out some tricks to his employees. And so news came out essentially that the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, Josh McDaniels, was fired. The GM, Dave Ziegler, was fired. Also, the offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi, was fired. And now we're finding out that the linebacker coach, Antonio Pierce, who is the interim head coach, is benching Jimmy G. And they're going with a 4th-round rookie named Aiden O'Connell, AOC.
AOC.
Out of Purdue for this week's game against the Giants. Within 24 hours, massive upheaval for the Raiders organization. First, any sort of jump out thoughts considering all this, Jack?
Well, jump out thoughts is really that is a cleared house. That's everyone but the defensive coordinator, right? For head coach, GM, offensive coordinator. Frankly, the defensive coordinator's got to feel pretty good that Mark Davis was out there just checking names off, fired, and he got to stay. So that's got to feel decent.
Sure.
As much as it can, it being on the Raiders, but But yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway is not the we're not gonna not to leak too much into the next segment. Is this is coming up tomorrow? I mean, not tomorrow. Like the day before this was the trade deadline. This was the night of the trade deadline, I believe, or the day after.
Right.
And to have not that there's that much they could have sold, but Jimmy G, if you're gonna bench Jimmy G, I bet someone you pay half that salary. I bet someone would give you a sixth for Jimmy G. Someone wants a backup quarterback. 49ers run out of quarterbacks all the time. Maybe the Vikings think, hey, we let's give up a fifth. Let's give up a fifth. We can save Jimmy G. He looks bad in the Raiders because Josh McDaniels is just bad. Like someone could have bought that. Hunter Renfrow has not been being used. And obviously you have the more star players who seem to want out, like Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. Of course, maybe now they'll be happier with the entire house being cleared. But the Raiders just seem pretty far away right now. They have no coaching staff really left, and it's not like they have a wealth of picks. They have some star players there, but they're quarterbackless, and it's not like their defense is good. It's not like, you're gonna have a lot of things in the Raiders don't look great, which is troubling for me also because not to dwell on this too long, but the Raiders just in the 2021-2022 season, this Raiders team was a playoff team. Not only they only lost to the Bengals, the AFC champion that year, and it was a one-score game. And looking at it, well, you may not remember, this was a one-score game. The Raiders had more yards this game. The Raiders outgained them on the ground, through the air, per play. Really, it wasn't penalties. It was like there was a fumble in between them. That game was an easily winnable game by the Raiders against the AFC champion, and then to have sucked the past 2 years. Like Josh McDaniels appears, and then they just suck. That was with an interim head coach. That was the year Gruden got fired, and they had an interim head coach, and they've now through all that, and then they acquired Devontae Adams, and then they added like a top 3 receiver in the league. And then they just sucked. So I think it's a great to fire Josh McDaniels right now.
I appreciate you coming back kind of there, and I want to jump in at that point, right? You've got the John Gruden situation, which was obviously a mess, but off the bat, Davis is at fault there for giving at that point an ESPN analyst a 10-year head coaching contract. That's what that was, right? And you might say, oh well. It wasn't that it was the on the field stuff that was the reason he was fired. No, it wasn't. But on the field, the Raiders didn't look good either. Okay, so right off the bat, that looked like that was already a bad decision. Now you've given McDaniels a 6-year contract. Right now, they don't even have a head coach, and they're paying 2, right? And so in that point where you had the interim head coach. After Gruden was fired, they actually did sneak into the playoffs. There seemed to be a lot of energy in the building. You had Waller still there. Jacobs was really good. You were playing with you had acquired Devontae going into that next season. And Derek Carr and Devontae sort of were ex-college teammates. So everything was sort of lining up. And now somewhere between the beginning of that season and now, we don't have Derek Carr. Devontae Adams is unhappy. Last year was a complete disaster. This year's even more of a disaster. Jimmy G is at the QB position, and he can't hit a wide open Devontae. I know Derek Carr has not looked good, but at least he could hit. When Devontae hits the sluggo, he's going to hit him when he's wide open. That's not what we saw Monday night, and that was the kind of the final straw, it seemed. Obviously, this is McDaniel's coaching system, and he didn't get along with Derek Carr because I think he tried to bring the New England style to Las Vegas. That sort of hard nose, don't take any shit. We're just gonna, basically, it's my way or the highway.
Do your job.
And do your job type of thing. And Derek Carr, he's an emotional guy. He cries on the podium, So
he's a sensitive soul.
He's a sensitive soul, and so they didn't jive, right? So he runs him out the door, essentially. They didn't agree. You bring in Jimmy G, and he doesn't work. As always, this comes back on the owner. You're hiring McDaniels, who has already failed as a head coach. This is the second and a half if you count the whole Colts debacle while he was on the plane to Indianapolis. And also it's not just McDaniels. This is a pattern of New England coordinators and coaches who are unable to make the jump to head coach and be successful. And so this comes back down to the person at the top, as always. It always goes back up. McDaniels, his head rolled, but you can't fire the owner, unfortunately. So now they're stuck. It's a complete mess, and I agree that they should have traded Devontae, because now what is he going to do?
Right. Or here's what he does, and here's what Mark Davis is telling Davante Adams right now. He's whispering in his ear, right off the books. He's saying, buddy, we're getting Caleb Williams for you right now. We're gonna hope and pray that the Panthers, trip themselves into winning another game or two. We are not winning another game. I personally have instilled this random linebackers coach. I've told him I'm going to give him a big bonus and make him next year's DC if he can lose every single game.
You think it's the active?
It's the active tank. I don't think that's what this is, but I think it might, like, I don't necessarily actually think it's that, but I think it maybe should be that. I think maybe that might be what happens, right? I think the Raiders are going to suck even more than they have, probably. No, like, not that Josh McDaniels probably was actively a detriment, but like, I think that's going to be an issue. I think that's going to be, like, this team is going to be even worse, I think, potentially. And if they're even worse, well, they're going to stay around 3-4 wins. They're going to get either the top quarterback, second quarterback in the draft. That's probably why they didn't sell. That's probably why they wanted to keep Davante Adams, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow. I know they already got rid of Waller, but like last over the past offseason. But like, that's why you say that's a half decent place for a rookie quarterback to go to. You have some half decent weapons there. You got some pretty good weapons. That's the hope. Of course, hopefully Adams is happy about that. He's aged, like, he wants to compete, right? He wants to compete in his golden years here. So what I'll think of that, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that's the idea. That's Mark Davis's idea. I think we have a great core of player. We got some good offensive weapons. Let's add in a rookie core. Like that has to be the way. That's the only way out I can think of. That's how I should say it.
I suppose
it's the only way out of sucking.
If you're gonna tank, this is as good of a start as any, because you can just say, well, we fired the entire coaching staff, and in theory, we thought it was because we needed a fresh start, but that was obviously a really bad decision because we never won another game, right? So, like,
somebody hire Jeff Saturday. Get Jeff Saturday on this team stat.
So someone call ESPN, get Stephen A. Smith on the line, or whatever analyst that they want.
Shannon Sharp, tight ends coach.
Shannon Sharp, Pat McAfee, whatever you need to do. But yeah, the Raiders are a mess. And we kind of spoke about at the trade deadline, could they have done anything to kind of remedy this? Could they have gotten to save their jobs? The GM, could he have gotten off of Jimmy G, especially if, maybe the plan was to bench him? I have a feeling that the plan was not to bench him, because McDaniels was committed, and that was enough for the owner to call it quits on everything. And now this is where we're at. But sort of transitioning to moves made at the trade deadline, I'm going to talk about some of the bigger winners and losers here. Does anything jump out at you as someone who made a move or maybe didn't at the deadline that could be the difference moving into this the back half of the season?
Yeah, I think there's one pretty clear poor move, I would say, which at first may not have been a poor move. At first, I saw a lot of fans of this team online potentially supporting this move, and that is the Bears trading a second-round pick for, is it Montez Sweat, I believe,
yes,
of the Commanders,
defensive end.
And first of all, we just have to realize, as we all know, but I'm going to say it anyway, a Bears second-round pick, that's a top 40 pick, right? Right. That's a pick 1 through 8. That is not a late second. It is a borderline first-round pick without the fifth year option.
Mm.
Last year when the Bears did this, it was Chase Claypool for pick 32 without a fifth year option.
And
So
that looks poor now.
that this is a Bears team who is nowhere close to competing, and this is a position of need for them, right? So on paper, that I actually don't hate that move. If they think position of need, right, we're gonna get this, we get first access to this guy, that would be great, and it would have been great if we would have heard in the past 24 or how many hours that he signed a contract extension. If this was a deal where they had set up where trade goes through, boom, 4-year contract. But Montez Sweat's going to be, I think, an unrestricted free agent this next year, and they could franchise tag him. But then you're trading a guy just to piss him off by franchise tagging him. Whereas, because he's going to go to free agency, I would have thought they would have had a deal for him, and then pair that news with them buying, right? Them giving their second round pick for a guy who they can't even sign, and then there's a lot of news of them trying to sell their cornerback. And this is a team who's not close to competing, trying to both buy to improve the team and sell their cornerback. The issue being their cornerback doesn't like the offer that whatever the Bears are offering him. And this is just like, well, okay, they weren't able to sell him, which is good for them. But this is just a case of they've traded a high value pick for a guy who they have not even signed yet. And for me, that's the issue, right? It's not like they're competing, and you gotta add this guy. For a rental, but trading the second's worth it. No, if you can't re-sign him, you're in a rebuild. If you can re-sign him, it's okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But yeah, I don't know. Thoughts on the Bears or anything?
No,
else?
I mean, this is a classic example of an organization where there are people who are basically making moves that don't make sense, but that it's more of to cover their own backs, right? Because all the hype going into this season was that this could be the Bears' year. Justin Fields is going to make the leap. We've got the right players around him. Blah 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 blah. Right, and then you go into the season and you've got 2 wins. Right, you're 2-6. You're still possibly going to be up for one of the highest picks in the draft, is what now people are thinking. And now you, as a coach, as a GM, as a coordinator, whatever it may be, you have to try to convince the owner, hey, this wasn't our bad. This wasn't a failure of a season. Let's go at the deadline and get some, even if it's just for this year, even if he walks next year. Let's just try to make this a 500 season. Let's try to make this. Yeah, let's just get some wins, right? And it's more about It's showing that improvement. Whereas long term, especially if he doesn't sign, things don't make sense right there. So it's just a classic, the Bears are trying to tell themselves a story that's just, at this point, we can see it's not true. On the other side of it, I'm a little confused because I feel like Washington's selling too early. I know they're 3-5, but they've looked decent. I mean, that game was a barn burner against the Eagles, 31-38, just last week, and now they're selling their 2 defensive ends.
And it's a full set, both.
Yeah, right.
Right, not 1, but 2.
So they send Young to San Francisco and obviously swept the Chicago. And it's not like for like a first round pick or anything like that. I mean, it's for decent picks, the Chicago pick more especially. But Washington, I mean, people are saying it's because the owner's new and it's just we're going to get away from this. I will say if you look back at some of these draft selections, specifically Chase Young went 2 overall under the Ron Rivera, basically, coaching system, and he was in between Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. Like that's what basically happened, right? So
yeah.
And Washington hasn't had a QB since Kirk Cousins. So you've got that franchise is basically passing up on Tua and Justin Herbert for this guy that they're trading away 3 years later. I understand that that's kind of a mess, and you're trying to get away from that, but I don't know. I still feel like, if that Eagles win goes the other way, they're 500. And I think in the NFC, they're right in the playoff race. Instead, they decide to sell. I think it's odd.
Yeah. I agree. And I especially think trading one of them was expected because they have a lot that Commanders lot, like defensive line, that entire line is first round picks. And that, like, they have a lot of talent, at least like that's, developed to varying success or whatever. But I could see them wanting to say, hey, we're not looking to spend half of our cap space on the defensive line. let's trade one of these guys. If they just did say that Montez Sweat trade, get the Bears pick, you know what? I think that's fine. I think that's fine for them because okay, you're gonna get that's a high value pick, that Bears second, and you still get keep 3 of your 4 core line. I would have been okay with that. Like even if they're not full sell, but the fact they full sold both of them, I was surprised about because Chase Young is only. I think that's a conditional third potentially that San Francisco's trading. Even if it's not, that's likely going to be a late 3rd round pick anyway.
Yeah, if
and
Young doesn't sign,
make a huge difference,
it's something else, or it's complicated.
Something there.
It's complicated.
Geez. I didn't even know that, but that's that's a sort of issue. That's a sort of issue there with. However, I don't think that third's going to be an amazing third. But yeah, I mean, I guess another team I'll highlight, not to only bang on the loser drum, but I do want to mention the Patriots here. That I'm not a big fan of. So they just came off a tough loss against the Dolphins, a good team, but still tough loss there. And they neither bought nor sold. They made no moves at this deadline, which for if it was another team in the Patriots position, I wouldn't think it's terrible. They don't have a lot of guys they necessarily want to sell. But I almost think they even in cases could have bought. Looking at a case like I believe the Lions traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones, or the Lions traded a 6th round pick for a receiver. And I think the Patriots, who love to collect late round picks, are you telling me the Patriots couldn't have traded their 6th? That'll be a higher 6th than the Lions. They couldn't have traded their 6th to get a receiver. The Patriots are down a bunch of receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster has not panned out. Right, I was hot on that before the season. That does not pan out. He cannot get on the field. They had to have Devontae Parker. I think had to get hurt for him to even get on the field because they were just benching him basically. They are really far down the depth chart with now Kendrick Bourne injured as well, out for the season with an ACL tear. Their best receiver, and frankly, even though you're losing, I think it could be worth it to get a guy like that. Get not that it's anything that special, but to just if people are selling, a lot of these trades, none of these trades were 1st round picks. Only a couple were 2nd round picks. And I like picks as much as the next guy, but everyone knows I'm a big tank draft sort of guy. But if you have a 5th round pick and you can trade for a half decent corner from the Packers, like the Bills did, I think the Bills traded a 3rd. But got a corner and a 5th or something. However, so some of the math is there were half decent players, not good players, but half decent players going for cheap. And if people are selling, you can buy. It's not terrible to buy. I know they inquired about players. I'm surprised they couldn't. And the other side of this issue is okay. You're not going to trade. You're not going to trade. You want to keep guys to re-sign them. That only matters if you're actually going to re-sign some of these guys. Guys like Josh Uche, Kyle Duggar, who I think are in contract years. If you're going to re-sign them, then great. Double thumbs up. And they should. I think they should. Mike Onwenu. They should re-sign these guys. But the question is, will Bill re-sign? That's the thing. Bill has not always wanted to re-sign his players and has not always wanted to give them money that they necessarily deserve, even when the Patriots have a ton of cap space. So if they re-sign, and they didn't trade him, great. But if we're going to see that 1 or 2 of these guys is going to leave in this offseason, then that's terrible. You gave them away for free. Maybe you're going to get a compensatory 3rd. Maybe. But
yes. So to jump on that, I believe that I saw a statistic that it's been 7 years since the Patriots signed one of their 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round picks to a 2nd contract, because they've either it's been busts or they're good players they have let walk, like J.C. Jackson and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you're talking about they should have bought. I think it's a little bit more telling that they didn't sell, right? That they didn't try to go into the full tank mode where, okay, we've only got 2 wins. If we're going to roll with this Belichick thing, can we get a top pick? Can we get a QB? Because we don't think Mac Jones is working, right? So, and the reason they really can't sell is because they have nothing to sell, right? Some of their best players are injured. And after that, the roster's trash. It's garbage. So you've really painted yourself in a corner where if you're not willing to buy, I would argue that they shouldn't, because they're bad, right?
They are bad.
You can't sell because you have no good pieces. You can't sell, you can't trade Judon because he's hurt. There's right, so that you have a couple of
Hurt
good
and
corners I
old.
think are
And
hurt.
yeah.
It's a mess over there.
And realistically, what are you going to get for Mac, right? If you could get a second for Mac, I would take that right now. If you could have gotten a third for Mac, I probably would have taken that. But if it's like a fourth or a fifth, then just let him ride out his contract. It's still rookie quarterback money. Just let him ride it. Like if it's going to be for a fourth or fifth, that doesn't mean much to me, right? But
Sure.
so that's why if the interest was as low as what is being reported in that, like none in Mac Jones, then I think it makes sense not to sell him. I just want to address it because I know that's a point myself as well would have been thinking about a lot going to the trade deadline. Trade Mac Jones, but the answer must be it's not worth trading him for a sixth. There's no point in it. Make him a backup, right?
Nobody wants him. They want the rocket scientist from Arizona. Give me Dobbs.
Dobbs.
Big brain Dobbs. All right, let's change gears here a little bit. So going into this week, we've got, and this is probably almost every single game, the spread is 3.5 or under. You've got a lot of bad teams playing each other and a lot of good teams playing each other. And so I'm just anticipating, hopefully, it's not always how, spreads don't dictate the games, but I'm hoping for an incredible weekend of football starting Thursday, like you said. But we're going to jump in right to the 9 a.m. Eastern time Germany game. Miami Dolphins versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs are only 1.5-point favorites in Germany. Jack, who you got going into this game? What do you think about it?
Who do I got in this game? I'm gonna take the Dolphins. I'm gonna take the Dolphins in this game. Shocking pick. I think
Dolphin
the Chiefs,
doubter Jack going with Miami.
I'm getting. Because at points I've had to warm up. My hand. I've done this before. So I'm not gonna do the full bit, but I've had to warm up. I can't deny it. I can't deny reality for so long. Not that I think there aren't weaknesses there. Not that I think blah 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 blah. But still, and I think looking Dolphins coming off a win against the Patriots, which was even though it looked like it was a 2-score game, it may as well have been worse than that. There were definitely points where the Dolphins struggled, but it should have been a more than 2-score. Like it didn't feel like the Patriots. The times the Patriots felt like they had a chance. The Dolphins made great takeaways. Jalen Ramsey's back, so that's why that Dolphins team is looking pretty good, right? I'm kind of grimacing a bit because I don't want them to be, but they're looking pretty good. Whereas the Chiefs have frankly had some struggles this year, where they struggled against the Jets. I believe they beat the Jets, but lost by a field goal to the Zach Wilson Jets. They've now just lost to the Broncos. And of course, I say that about the Jets. I do like the Jets. That's a separate topic. But still, right? They almost lost there. They lost to the Lions, right? Season opener. They have now lost to the Broncos, of all teams. Of course, I think what makes this game particularly interesting will be, was that loss to the Broncos real, or was it, Mahomes is the flu, it's really cold and snowy? Is it those? I'm going to say excuses, but that not necessarily in a negative way. Like, is that why they lost, or is there actual cause for concern? Because I think the Dolphins won't be a team where they can sort of get by the way they got by against a team like the Jets or some of these other teams. I feel like they always beat the Chargers, even if it's close games. They always be like some of these games. I'm curious to see them face a team like the Dolphins, because I feel like they've been struggling this season. The Chiefs. So that's what, and that's what their struggles, and the Dolphins looking pretty good despite the loss. Or they beat the Eagles. I'm now forgetting the weeks here. This is the issue when we go away for a bit, because they beat the Eagles. They beat the Patriots. Was there a game in between?
They lost to the Eagles.
They lost to the Eagles. Oh, that's right. That was the primetime game. That's right. That was the primetime game.
Yes.
Yeah, I forget. I never forget how that.
They got blown out by Buffalo.
And they got blown out by Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I was hot on Miami, and what I like about Miami is that I feel like they could, at any moment, they can score, right? And when a lot of teams can't do that. And so if you're down, or it's a 2-minute drill, I like that. Or even if it's a 30-second drill, I like that they have that weapon. But the truth of the matter is, when they've played good teams, Eagles, and the Bills this year, they've lost and they've looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
On the other side, though, Chiefs haven't played a super tough schedule either. And they've lost to Denver, they lost to the Lions, and they haven't really beaten anyone fantastic. They beat the Chargers, they beat the Jets, their best win was against the Jaguars. So
Mm.
I'd say I think that's why the spread's so low. But I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one just because even
Mm.
though I personally want to believe in Miami, I've just been burned already this season when they've played
Yeah,
against good teams. So I'm going to take the Chiefs, but hopefully
I think
it's
it's
a good
fair.
one. Let's jump into this game, which I think is a little bit odd. Seattle Seahawks 5-2 at the Ravens. Baltimore Ravens 1 o'clock. The Ravens are 6-point favorites in this one. I'll just jump right into this one. I think the Ravens have looked great. Last time we were doing the pod, they were going into the game against the Lions, which I said the Lions were frauds and the Ravens would win. They did. They blew out the Lions. But I don't know. I think Seattle's been playing pretty decently as well. It just always feels like this is the same thing last year. Every time Seattle's right there, now they're I think number one in that division. They're actually over top of the
Mm.
San Francisco 49ers. Every time it's like, oh, this is when they're going to pull away, they would lose a game, right? So they lost to the Bengals 2 weeks ago. And it feels like another one where it's like, oh, they're right there. Or maybe it was last week. Either way, they just lost to the Bengals.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, they're right there. They're going to make that jump. They're going to win that division, and then they lose. So, as I like them I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I picked them to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm pretty sure, and
Oh,
that's looking
jeez.
worse and worse because it's just they don't seem to deliver consistently. So I'm gonna go with the Ravens on this one. Any thoughts on this game, Jack?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks here. Partially just to disagree with you, but also because the Seahawks are top of the division. They're top of the division. They just bought a veteran defensive lineman from the Giants. I think it was a good acquisition by them, in my professional opinion. But that's I mean I'm liking that. I think that it is tough because the Ravens are such a good team, right? And they kind of demolished the Lions and then beat the Cardinals. I would say that Cardinals game was relatively close. It was a one score game. Lamar Jackson only threw for 157 yards in that game, which is also partially just scheme. Some of these games are scheme, and they were up. Sorry about that. And they were up a lot of the game, right? So he didn't have to throw.
Mm,
But I'm expecting the Seahawks to potentially maybe not let the Ravens get to as big of an early lead, maybe to stay in the game more with points, to not let not let the Ravens sort of coast. And not that I'm hot on Lamar Jackson. Not that I think, oh, you just make him throw. It's not that, but I think they're going to keep it much more competitive throughout the course of the game, and 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 just sort of show why they're still at the top. I think the Ravens are due for a loss
mm,
at some point here, because I think that team's good and I'm hot on them. I am hot on the team right now, but I I still don't see a ton of talent on that offense outside of Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. I'm not sure how Odell Beckham Jr. is playing, if he's playing, but I still see some issues there that I think the Seahawks have a pretty good secondary. They've kind of built through the draft. I think that the Seahawks have enough defensive pieces that might show the sort of some of the weaknesses that the lack of offensive talent surrounding Lamar Jackson might might possess.
sure. And if you watch some of the games, I think Lamar is playing better than what his stats would say. And part of it is that
Mm.
I think that Zay Jones was playing all right. Odell Beckham Jr. has not looked good. Didn't look good last week. So I think that that's part of the issue with the Ravens, but I still like them over Seattle this week. Hopefully, it's a good game. One of the larger spreads of the weekend, 6 points,
Yeah,
which is just
yeah.
fantastic. Let's get into Cowboys at Eagles. Cowboys 5-2, right behind the Eagles in the NFC Beast, who are 7-1 and the best team in football right now, record wise. Nonetheless, at home Eagles are only 3-point favorites in this game, and which I think is particularly odd because I would take them to smash that to cover that easily because similar to the Dolphins, the Cowboys have uh, basically they're only the only really great team that they played was the 49ers, and they got demolished by them. And as a bonus, they got destroyed by the Cardinals. See, the thing about the Cowboys is every single game except the Charger game where it was 20-17, every single game this season has been a blowout in one direction or the other. Okay, so there's a formula that the Cowboys have where basically they get up early, they get a defensive score, uh, they get a special team score, something, fumble, int, pick six, and they literally just front run the entire game, and that's it. The defense plays super aggressive after that. The offense, the pressure's off. Dak Prescott can kind of coast. He can throw a pick. He can not, whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
They're up 30 at half, so it doesn't matter. And this has been the formula for them. When it's been the other side and they haven't gotten out to a fast start and they haven't gotten those plays from the defense, they've gotten blown out. The offense has stalled over and over again. Against the Cardinals, that was what it was like. The defense caved over and over again. They played aggressive, they got burnt, and then they just never caught back up, right? Same thing with the 49ers. I'm anticipating that exact thing to happen. The Eagles are a much better team. Some people will say because they've played close games that they're not as good as they seem. I think they might be. You can make an argument that they are the best team in the league, and we're going to continue to see that as they go through this really, really tough stretch of their schedule. They've already beaten Miami and Washington. They should handle Dallas, and they're going to be looking into the Kansas City game after that. So, and it just continues. They got the Bills, they got the 49ers, but I definitely got the Eagles here because the Cowboys are frauds. And if you didn't know, I'm a Cowboys fan. What do you got, Jack?
Well, as much as I want to continue just opposing your takes, I unfortunately don't think I can this game. I also think the Cowboys. I mean, the way you painted it is a good picture. They came off of a nice blowout win against the Rams, right? With Dak throwing 4 touchdowns, that just. But yeah, looking at that game, it was 33-9 at the half. They were up 17-3 just in the first quarter. And that's the sort of thing of, okay, yeah, once you get up to an early lead like that, you get to play a different type of football, right? Which of course teams have been known to blow leads, but it's also like, I have to think if you come out to a massive lead, yeah, teams can blow leads, but odds are you get to play a easier style of football. You don't have the pressure on you. You get to you get to do a lot more sorts of things versus the other team has pressure on them to win, like has pressure on them to be active, right? You don't have to be active. And I don't think they're going to get off to that start against the Eagles. Just with the Eagles being a good team, as you're saying, potentially the best team in the league. I would have to do an analysis all the teams to think about that, but that's where it comes in. Like, yeah, I mean, this Eagles team won't let them get off to an early lead, and I also think this Eagles team. I mean, I think that their defense is going to be stifling enough to give a occasionally troubled Cowboys offense some more troubles. And with turnovers, with pressure, there's going to be pressure on Dak with that insane Eagles offensive line. Picking up, adding to their secondary with the Biard trade from the Titans. There's going to be like that defense on the Eagles thing is going to continue to be great, and right, and the Eagles still have a good offense, right. I still feel better about the Eagles offense, even if I want to say, okay, Cowboys defense, Eagles defense equal. If I want to call them equal, I still have to give the offensive edge to the Eagles. The quarterback position, receivers. Maybe I like Tony Pollard more, but Tony Pollard has also had some trouble not like being forced to be, the sort of main running, but like not getting. He used to get 8 yards a carry and everything, but that's also because they would run Zeke down their throats for 2 yards constantly.
Right,
and Pollard got to be used more as a third down back. Which isn't, I still think he's a good player. So maybe I'd take him over DeAndre Swift, I think, is on the Eagles, who's played well this season, but maybe I'd take him over that. But other than that, offensively, the Eagles are still great. So yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, there's not too much. I think both sides of the ball, probably coaching, right? Nick Sirianni over McCarthy. I probably take that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I take that.
This one's going to be. I anticipate this one
Coordinators, though.
looking
Yeah.
exactly like every other game this season. It's going to be a blowout, and it's probably going to be favoring the Eagles. We'll see, but yeah, listen. There's a lot of great games. It's not we discussed these three because these were some of the best teams that we're most excited for. But don't forget the primetime game, Bills at the Bengals on Sunday night. A little bit of a playoff rematch. So that one should be fun. And then there's just a lot of other 1.5, 2.5 point spreads for for these bad teams, poor record teams. It should be a fun weekend of football. So, and we'll be back next week to discuss it. Okay, so
I wouldn't use that word, but sure. And then you change from bad record teams to poor to whatever you said. Sorry. Breakdown.
If you all catch that one, drop a comment. But we will be back. We will be back next week to talk about the results of of this big weekend of the NFL, and talking about looking into, I believe, will be week 10, as well.
Yeah.
So if you like what you heard, make sure that you subscribe. Drop a comment if you didn't like it, or if you did. Whatever
constructive criticism.
Yeah, whatever you got.
You're looking for, yeah.
We want to hear. And obviously we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If that's how you're listening, make sure that you subscribe to us on there so that you get the audio podcast when it comes out. Anything else you got, Jack, before we close this episode down?
No, I don't think so. I mean, really, we got to cover a lot of bases. Can't wait to watch Will Levis tomorrow night. Yeah.
Oh yeah, catch the Mayo Man on Thursday night. Amazon Prime. Plenty of Hellman's advertising on that one. All right, well,
yeah,
this was episode 45 of 710 Sports with
Jack
and Jared. See you next time.